Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin our service, we ask that you please turn off all cell phones and electronic devices or place them on silent. Thank you.
Esaina el harim meyayin yavo Ezri me'im Adonai ose shamayim va'aretz aliti lamot raglecha al yanu shomrecha hine lo yanum lo yishan shomer Yisrael Adonai shomrecha Adonai tzilcha al yad yeminecha Yomam hashemesh lo yakeka v'yareach balayla Adonai yishmarcha mikora yishmor et nafshecha Adonai yishmar tzetecha uvoecha me'ata v'ad olam.
I lift my eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help comes from Adonai, the maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your protector will not slumber. See, the protector of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian. God is your protection at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm. God will guard your soul, your going and your coming, now and forever. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination, our tradition teaches. But life is a journey. And this morning, as we gather in these final days of Elul, the Hebrew month immediately preceding our High Holy Day season, we honor the journey that was Marilyn's life. And we come together to bring some measure of comfort to you, her family, to Susan and David, to Eric and Erica, Dana and Alex, to Rick, to Jill, who preceded Marilyn in death, and to all of your extended family and your circle of friends. The name of this month of Elul can also be seen as an acronym, standing for the line from Song of Songs, Ani lidodi, vidodi li. I am my beloved's, and my beloved is mine. It is a line that opens our hearts to the deepest kind of love and emotion that felt for someone who gave us life, with whom we shared so much of life with, who was there for us as we were there for them, who loved you as only a mother and grandmother could. At this time of year, as we sit in this in-between period, as one year ends and the new year begins, the image of Sefer HaChaim, this idea of a book of life, stands front and center. It is a powerful image because, for a profound sense, each of our lives can be likened to a book. Birth, life, and death are each major divisions of that book, and every important period constitutes a chapter, filled with the details of words spoken or left unsaid, of deeds done or neglected. And in the library of the world of people, there are all sorts of books, some filled with excitement, which one reads with bated breath, not knowing what the next page will reveal. And there are also quiet books, which tell a beautiful story of a good life lived with dignity, integrity, kindness, and love. And in addition to the contents of the book is the fact that in Hebrew we say Vehotem Yad Kol Adam Bo, that the seal, the signature of each person is in it. Each person is the author of their own life's book, and what each day's page contains is nothing short of the precious memories we hold on to at this time, the imprint that Marilyn's life had on those around her, the way the book of your lives are so deeply intertwined with hers, and the imprint she leaves on our world for having lived in it for nearly a century. These days of grief and mourning, we are taught, is the price we pay for having the courage to love and to care for others as deeply as we do, and the courage it also takes to let them love us as deeply as they do. And it testifies to a love so much stronger than death, a love that continues in the tender and more gentler world of spirit and memory, as you seek to feel her presence with you and around you in a new way. At the ending of the year, and when it begins, we remember her. And this morning, we gather to help write that final page in the book of Marilyn's life, so that her memory may now be sealed for eternity, and her love sealed upon your hearts as a blessing forever.
In truth, the many sparks of an individual's life are contained within the flowing memories of all those who were touched by her. We each hold Marilyn in our hearts and minds in our own unique ways. While she was Bubby to Eric and Dana and their spouses, Erica and Alex, Marilyn was Bubby to more than her grandchildren. Everyone called her Bubby. David's sisters, Minna and Barbara, and their families embraced Marilyn as their own, and family meals and celebrations were not complete unless Bubby was there. Born in the Bronx, Marilyn was strikingly beautiful, with clear hazel eyes. She and Shelley knew each other from the time they were 14 or 15. They grew up in the same neighborhood, always surrounded by cousins and friends. As Susan tells it, Marilyn was a daddy's girl. Ever shy and reserved, she was lovingly drawn to her gregarious, life-of-the-party father, who I'm told was thought of as a bit of a rascal. In meeting Shelley, she fell for the guy who had so many similar qualities, minus the rascal part. She was the introvert to his extrovert, and together they struck a perfect balance. Marilyn enjoyed rich friendships throughout her life, most especially with her three best friends, Zelda, Mary, and Flory. Though not always near one another in proximity, they all remained so close throughout their lives, keeping in touch with letters. Remember those? And visits, attending one another's children's weddings. After high school, Marilyn became a secretary. Honing her skills deftly, she ultimately became a very accomplished executive secretary and worked for many years in the garment industry in imports. In Cincinnati, she worked for the Dunkelmans at a company called Jerk Socks. When Mr. Dunkelman and his family were moving to an apartment, they found that they couldn't take their family dog and hoped to find someone working at the company to take him. Quite surprisingly, Marilyn volunteered to take the dog. Mrs. Cohen is taking Dunky. Yes, the Dunkelmans named their dog Dunky. And try as she might to change his name to almost anything else, Dunky it remained, and he spent many years living the good life with the Cohens. In 1967, when Susan and Jill were still quite young, the family moved to Cincinnati for Shelley's work, and together they created a wonderful life, becoming part of the Jewish community there and joining a synagogue. Reconnecting with Shelley's cousins in Cleveland became very important living in the Midwest. Expanding their world of family meant so much to all of them. Long before electronic devices, before cable and streaming TV, Saturday nights were reserved for what the Cohens and their friends called club. Cards for the men and mahjong for the women. They enjoyed an engaging social life, while Jill and Susan enjoyed Sunday mornings with all the leftover snacks and sweets. Perhaps the only sticking point in moving to the Midwest was, as dyed-in-the-wool New York liberal Jews, their politics were not always in alignment with their new friends. So, particularly if it was an election year, Marilyn would often have to say, "Shelley, do not bring it up." Marilyn and Shelley loved to travel, and because of working in the import-export business, Marilyn had a particular interest in going to Asian countries. Japan, Hong Kong, and China held a particular fascination for her. As Marilyn was a girl mom, she was perhaps a bit unsure about what it would be like to have male kids around. Yet she quickly came to adore her sons-in-law and loved welcoming David and Rick to their family. After 25 years in Cincinnati, Shelley was the first to retire sooner than expected following a stroke at 63. Marilyn held down the fort, becoming involved with his recovery and keeping things going while he recuperated, all while continuing to work herself. When it came time for Marilyn to retire, and with the birth of their second grandchild, Shelley and Marilyn moved to this area. And when they took their apartment at Sagemore, Marilyn said she felt like a bride again. It was the start of a new life that included grandkids, trips to Atlantic City with friends, wintering in Florida for a few months, and traveling to visit Jill and Rick whenever they could. Although Susan told me her mom wasn't much of a cook, their home was always neat and put together, including a living room showplace that no one ever sat in. I know a lot of us had know those living rooms. Appearances were very important to Marilyn. She loved making everything look nice and always took in compliments with pleasure. It was not for vanity or showing off. Marilyn just always wanted to make everything nice and held herself to a very high standard. Ever kind and gracious, Marilyn always wanted to do the right thing. When I asked Susan how her mother would want to be remembered, she told me that she was full of gratitude and had always wanted to help others. With Marilyn's passing, a generation of both family and friends is now but memory. Wonderful stories of life and love, growth, stories of celebration, of loss, challenge, and grace. A generation closes, and with it, a shift in family structure. Yet even as Marilyn's eyes grew dim, her joy was increased in knowing a great-grandchild is on the way. And with that new little one, another generation will begin. Zichrona livracha, may Marilyn's memory always remain as an abiding blessing. You ready? Okay. Dana will be accompanied by Eric and join us up here to share some more Bubby stories.
We're so grateful and blessed to be surrounded by so many loved ones to honor our Bubby's life today. The community that has rallied around our family during this time is incredible. It has been a constant in my life as long as I can remember. Thank you so much for being here with us. Bubby and Poppy decided to move here from Cincinnati when I was born. I remember her constantly saying, "I can't believe I live in New Jersey." She loved knitting and mahjong and solitaire. Bubby and Poppy watched Jeopardy every night and constantly had a Scrabble board going. They thrived as retired grandparents. She introduced Eric and I to movie musicals early on in our life. Both of us became obsessed with theater, and our parents brought all of us to New York to see shows every chance we could. I have such vivid memories of watching Bye Bye Birdie and Thoroughly Modern Millie and performing dance routines while she babysat us. Once we got to high school, she never missed any of our performances, coming multiple nights to watch Eric and I in every production. My Bubby also got a job working in the Hebrew school office at the synagogue. Anyone who saw me in the hallway would say, "I saw your Bubby in the office today. She is so nice." And she was. Before we went off to college, she knitted huge Afghans for Eric and I, and even made ones for all of our closest friends. It was like she was everyone's Bubby. We're overwhelmed by the community that has shown up for our family year after year. Thank you so much for being here to honor Bubby's life with us.
I'd like to share with you some stories that really capture the essence of who Marilyn Cohen was. As a young woman, she graduated from high school at 16, set out to find a job in the big city, and that's Manhattan for the kids from the Bronx. She got an interview for a company located in the Empire State Building. She didn't know how to get there. So she made my grandmother take her on the subway, go with her, show her how to do it, and she got the job. And every time that we went to New York City, she would tell us that story because the Empire State Building, that was a big deal. Although her career was typical, she was proud to be skilled in shorthand, if you remember shorthand, and she was an accomplished typist. In her 60s, before retiring, she learned how to operate a word processor. She stayed current, kept value in her position. She became more than just a secretary. She learned that import business. They used to let her name the, each style had a name, and they said, "Oh, Marilyn will do that." She was a working mom, but insisted on only working school hours, and she would eat lunch at her desk every day in order to leave at 3 o'clock and be home for us. Marilyn was a bit of a renegade, although you would never know it. She and my father grew up in the same neighborhood in the Bronx, but when they wanted to purchase a home, they had the audacity to leave the city and their families for the suburb of Yonkers. She knew what she wanted for her family, and she was brave enough to make the decisions that would make that happen. My mother was raised in a culturally Jewish household with very little religious upbringing. My father, on the other hand, was raised Orthodox. Whenever we would look at the pictures from their wedding in 1949, Marilyn would say, "I don't know why, but I insisted that we get married in the synagogue." They joined a Reformed temple in Yonkers. She knew it was important to give my sister Jill and I the religious education that she did not have. And she used to tell us the story of how in Cincinnati, at Temple Sholem, she heard that they were considering changing the curriculum and lowering the amount of Hebrew to be taught. She went to the committee meeting, she spoke against the change, and as Marilyn would tell the story, "I don't know what compelled me to speak, but I knew I had to do it." As Rick reminds me, she played dumb a little bit, but she was not dumb. And they listened and they made no changes to the program. My mother knew no Hebrew, but she could memorize, and that's exactly what she did when it became time for Jill's bat mitzvah, and she had to get up in front of everyone and light the candles on Friday night. I remember so clearly practicing with her because it was really important to her to get it right. My parents pulled the money together to send Jill and I to the Reform Summer Camp in Indiana. They supported our involvement in all the different youth groups during high school. When Jill announced that she wanted to take a gap year and attend the Young Judea Year course in Israel, my mother was so upset and angry with her, she didn't talk to Jill for over a week. She was afraid that Jill would make Aliyah and not go to college, and she didn't know how to express that to her and her feelings. She did come around eventually to accept the idea, and one of their first trips of significant travel was when they went to visit Jill in Israel in 1978. My parents were members of Temple Sholem for all their years in Cincinnati and immediately joined McCourt Shalom upon moving to South Jersey. They taught Jill and I the importance of having a community and contributing to the community, and it's no wonder that both of the Cohen girls became leaders in their own synagogues. Marilyn was devoted to her mother, my grandmother, Esther Popple. She worshiped her father, Joe, but he died very young, and Marilyn became the support for her mother for many years. Goes around, comes around. Nanny moved into our home in Yonkers, but when my parents moved to Cincinnati for my father's work, again, the audacity, Nanny said, "No, I am not leaving New York." So Nanny moved into a senior housing apartment in Yonkers, and we began annual trips to visit. She came to us every spring for 6 weeks. And on those long car rides from Cincinnati to New York every year, Jill would sit in the front with my father with the triptych in her lap. Remember the triptych, right? And a book, triptych book, what town are we in? And then I would sit in the back with my mother. There was a pile of books. I had my paper dolls. And eventually, it always ended up that I would lay down in her lap, and my mother had beautiful hands, and she would gently scratch my back as I would rest in her lap. It's a wonderful memory. We would schlep all over New York and New Jersey to visit the family because it was important for them to stay connected to everyone. But that was not much fun for two little girls. The year that we drove Jill to New York before her gap year, my mother planned a very special trip for us. I think maybe she was trying to make up for her initial reaction to Jill wanting to go to Israel for a year. She used all her connections from work. We stayed in her boss's fancy apartment in Midtown Manhattan. We saw 2 Broadway shows, Yul Brynner in the revival of The King and I, and a brand new show, A Chorus Line. This was 1978. It was magical, it was memorable, and my mother gave Jill a wonderful send-off. Marilyn was an avid reader and knitter. She inspired my love of reading. My book club friends know how deeply I get invested in our monthly book selections. We were at the library a few times every week growing up. My mother would scour that new bookshelf, never left without 2 or 3 books to read. Jill and I each went to work in that library during high school. We would bring home the latest bestsellers to her so she didn't have to wait in the reserve list to get them. I love the library. I love the library because of my mother. The knitting, that I'm not so great at, but I'm trying to relearn this skill. Marilyn was a gifted knitter. The more complicated the pattern, the more she leaned into it. If I asked for something with multiple colors, the response was, really? How about this cable pattern? That's what she liked to knit. Sweaters, Afghans, Barbie doll clothes, baby clothes. She always had some kind of project going. When I was in 4th grade and we studied textiles in elementary school, there was going to be a fashion show. My mother made me a gorgeous Kelly green dress, poncho, matching beret. I was the hit of the show. I really treasure the box of her creations that I have saved for the next generation to come, and I'm inspired to follow in her footsteps. So when I retire, that's what you'll find me knitting. One of the best gifts my mother ever gave me was to teach me to enjoy a good cocktail and how to drink gin. If you know, you know. In retirement, Marilyn felt she needed to not just stay busy, but how could she use her administrative skills best? So she got Merrill Steinberg to hire her as the religious school secretary at McCourt Shalom on Sunday mornings. She loved working with the children and the teachers, and she would greet everyone with a warm smile and good cheer. She volunteered to read to the kids in the library, there's a theme, at Stockton Elementary School, but I think that was really just to see her grandkids, and that's when she came to be known more widely as Dana and Eric's Bubby. Tuesdays were the library at McCourt with Dina and Gay. Monday and Thursday afternoons for Mahjong or Canasta with her friends at Holiday Village, and Saturday nights playing cards with many friends that my parents made when they moved here to New Jersey. Marilyn was a great bubby. She came to all the school concerts and plays and soccer games and baseball games. My parents babysat for Eric and Dana a lot. One night, David and I came home to find my father sitting watching a Yankees game. He's, oblivious to what's going on in the house. Eric and Dana are running wild around the house. And we look at them and we say, "Where's Bubby?" They said, "We can't find her." They were playing hide and seek, and we found my mother, giggling and hiding, crawled underneath the dining room table. And as ladies of her generation were, perhaps she was a little vain. She always wanted to look her best, play up her best features, her beautiful hazel eyes and her dainty nose. Her outfits would always match from the shoes to the handbag. My mother loved to sit in the sun, and a nice suntan was the best makeup she could have. She would come home from work in the late afternoon and take a book in the backyard just to get an hour in the sun. When they moved to Holiday Village, David camped out to get her the best condo that he could with exactly the right sun angle. And then I think, didn't she give it to somebody else, right? When she moved to Brightview, she insisted on an apartment with a patio so she could often be found on the other sun deck, morning sun in the patio, afternoon sun somewhere else. And I can't remember her ever applying sunscreen. And Marilyn had beautiful, beautiful hands. Our favorite activity was to go to At Nails for a manicure together. Those ladies were so kind to her. They showered her with attention, and they called her Mommy. I am so grateful for those many afternoons that we spent together getting a little pampering. As she aged and her cognitive abilities were dwindling, my mother taught me the most important lesson of all. Her immense sense of gratitude came shining through. Her desire was strong to help others even when she could no longer take care of herself. When the words would fail her, she would just put out her hand for a handshake. She would blow you a kiss. Or she would point her finger as if to say, yes, that's exactly what I meant to say. Showing kindness to everyone was how she dealt with her frustration at her declining health and capabilities. These last few years brought out the best in Marilyn, and I'm eternally grateful to Mary Sod and the Wellspring team at Brightview for the care and the respect that they gave to Marilyn, and in return, she showed them her best sweet self every single day. My mother set the example for me. From her, I learned how to balance caring for and respecting her needs while also living my own life and raising my own family. It was my biggest fear that my mother would outlive my sister. But in fact, the bonds between us only grew stronger in those years when it was just the two of us Cohens left. We were blessed that she was able to get to know Erica and Alex, and see her grandchildren find their life partners, and she was so proud of them all. My mother trusted me completely, and because of the trust that she had in me, then I was able to care for her over these last years, knowing that she felt safe with every decision that I made. I'm so grateful for that. Whether it was the decision of what to order for lunch or all those big decisions that you have to make. I will miss the afternoons at the nail salon and showing her my knitting progress, telling her about the latest book I'm reading, and showing her pictures on my phone of Eric and Erica and Dana and Alex. And I will carry her with me in my heart and remind myself often of the most important life lessons that she taught me. Never say no to a cold gin and tonic. It's okay to order the lamb chops. Be generous in spirit and always, always be kind.
Shadows falling and I'm running out of breath. Keep me in your heart for a while. If I leave you, it doesn't mean I loved you any less. Keep me in your heart for a while. When you get up in the morning and you see that crazy sun, keep me in your heart for a while. There's a train leaving nightly called when all is said and done. Keep me in your heart for a while. Sha-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-li-lo. Keep me in your heart for a while. Sha-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-li-lo. Keep me in your heart for a while. Sometimes when you're doing simple things around the house, maybe you'll think of me and smile. You know I'm tied to you like the buttons on your blouse. Keep me in your heart for a while. Hold me in your thoughts, take me to your dreams. Touch me as I fall into view. When the winter comes, keep the fires lit, and I will be right next to you. Engine drivers headed north to Pleasant Stream. Keep me in your heart for a while. These wheels keep turning, but they're running out of steam. Keep me in your heart for a while. Sha-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-li-lo. Keep me in your heart for a while. Sha-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-li-lo. Keep me in your heart for a while. Keep me in your heart for a while.
Birth is a beginning and death a destination. But life is a journey, a going, a growing from stage to stage, from childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength or strength to weakness, and often back again. From health to sickness and back, we pray, to health again. From offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, but life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage, made stage by stage, from birth to death to life everlasting. I invite you to please rise for our memorial prayer of El Malay Rachamim.
שוכן במרומים, המצא מנוחה נכונה, תחת כנפי השכינה, עם קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים את נשמת משליה בת יוסף ואסתר שהלכה לעולמה. בעל הרחמים יסתיריה בסתר כנפיו לעולמים, ויצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתה. אדוני הוא נחלתה, ותנוח בשלום על משכבה, ונאמר אמן.
Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Marilyn Cohen, Mashalea bat Yosef ve'Esther, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in your eternal presence and in the shadow of your wings. Let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace. And together we all say, Amen. I invite you to please be seated. Interment will follow our chapel service this afternoon at Crescent Memorial Park, where Kaddish will be recited. Immediately following interment, Shiva will commence at Susan and David's home in Cherry Hill. They will observe today until 4 p.m. and continue at 7 p.m. with a Shiva Minyan service at 7:30 p.m. Tomorrow, Shiva will begin from 1 until 4 p.m. and again continue at 7 p.m. with a Shiva Minyan service at 7:30.